Okay. Good evening. This meeting is the Board of Education and Public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not being considered a public community meeting. There's time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda item. Remarks of the public. Roll call.
Mrs. Detory? Here. Mr. Douglas?
Here.
Mr. Katsowski?
Here.
Dr. Phelps?
Here.
Mr. Thorson?
Here. Pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Motion to approve the agenda. Second. Any changes? Roll call.
Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Katsowski?
Yes.
Dr. Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Thorson?
Yes.
Mrs. Detory? Yes.
Okay. Item number 4, remarks to the public. All persons wishing to address the board have a 5-minute limitation. Please state your name, address, and topic. Mr. Pierce, you're up first.
Thank you. I noticed that tonight on your agenda you have a recommendation from the superintendent on grade level caps. And I certainly familiar with the topic of grade level caps. And there were a couple of things that I just wanted to share with you. I want to focus on the elementary school numbers just because they're the easiest to understand. And I noticed that for kindergarten, for instance, it comes out to be 22 students per teacher, which I have no issue with at all. That seems like a very reasonable kind of number. However, I am a little concerned about the fact that there's no differentiation between the number of students per teacher for kindergarten and 5th grade. In the past, we have typically had numbers more like 25 students per teacher as a target for 5th grade. And it seems like going into the community and saying that we are going to decrease the number of our students per teacher and increase our cost per student by doing so, that we may have a difficult sell, particularly as we grow the community and ask for more money in upcoming levels. So I would just ask you to think about that as you have the discussion. I know you'll have plenty of discussion. I'm sure that there are some good reasons why Dr. Marquardt has recommended those numbers, but that's just another point of view for you to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pierce. Mr. Kilroy?
You're WestGBrd school board member, and I'd like to have this. One of your board members, Ben Katowski, is in violation of Chester election sign ordinances. Candidate election signs are not allowed to be displayed until 30 days before the election. Mr. Katowski is aware of this rule, yet has a large banner of 8422 Mayfield Road. The 30-day rule has been enforced for years, maybe decades. Mr. Katowski is a clear cheater, and I hope this board would make a motion demanding they take down the sign and abide by the election rules. 2, this letter is also to serve as an official public records request for all emails from January 1st, 2014 to May 27th, 2014 from Mr. Katowski or to Mr. Katowski from any source. The reason for the request is to investigate possible sunshine law violations by Mr. Katowski. Thank you.
Michael, what dates? She's down. Okay, great, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Superintendent's report?
Tonight, before I go into my portion of the superintendent's report, we have a presentation from the Geuaga County Department of Jobs and Family Services by Ashley Ganeri. Am I saying?
Ganeri.
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 Mhm.
Yeah, that my G didn't come out, but I truly did say the G. So Ashley, thank you.
I'm not sure if there's enough of these. There's a lot more people here than I thought would be. But if you guys can just share, it's just information regarding the levy and then.
Next time we have a transparency meeting, tell them we're violation. They know the rules.
Good start.
Okay, so my name is Ashley Ginner. I am a intake and assessment worker for Job and Family Services. So basically what that means is that when Job and Family Services is called, it's my department and my team's job to investigate the reports of abuse, neglect, and dependency. So first of all, I want to thank you guys for allowing me to come out here today to talk about this. This is going to be short and sweet, but it's just going to be the importance of the upcoming levy that's coming up for Job and Family Services and how it's going to impact our entire community and the agency. So this is going to be issue number 30 on the upcoming levy. So I'm just going to tell you guys a little bit about what we do, some facts, and then you guys are more than welcome to ask any questions. So in 2014, we investigated 502 reports of abuse, neglect, or dependency involving Geuaga County children ranging in age from 0 months to 18 years old. So that means that we only opened 502 cases. That doesn't mean that's how many calls we got. There were way more than 502 calls, but actual cases that we opened and investigate and screen in was 502. Children's Services averaged 66 Geuaga County children in custody per month in 2014, which is up from 2011. 2011, it was 27 children per month. Children's Services is responsible for the safety, care, and nurturing of these children at all times while they're in our custody. In 2014, Children's Services provided services to families of over 115 adopted children. Geuaga County residents have protected our county's children by supporting Children's Services with a local property tax for over 60 years. The Children's Services levy represents less than 1% of your property tax dollar, but it represents 60% of the county's Children's Services budget. So with that being said, the additional levy will cost the average homeowner that a home is valued at $100,000, $1,750 in property taxes per year, or just $146 per month. So this is an additional levy that we are asking for, and these are the reasons why. Since 2011, our heroin and opiate use has increased by over 400%. So the number of children in our custody due to this heroin opiate use from 2011 has increased 400%. So within the past 4 years, drug and alcohol abuse has increased greatly. I'm sure this is something that a lot of people are aware of, or maybe you're not aware of, but that is something that we are really, really struggling with at the agency is parental drug and alcohol abuse. Our placement costs have tripled over the last 4 years. The cost of care for a child in the custody of Geuaga Children's Services who is placed in a residential treatment center can be as much as $450 a day or $13,500 a month. So this includes children who are in Beachbrook residential centers, just as an example. Belfair, residential placements like that can cost up to $450 a day. The behavioral and mental health needs of the children and parents that we serve have become far more complex, resulting in an increase in the length of time that these children require an out-of-home placement. So due to the intensity of the needs of both the parents and the children, they have to stay out of the home for a longer period of time in order for us to address those. The population of youth aging out of our custody and receiving independent living services has significantly grown. The state of Ohio continues to reduce our allocations despite being 50th in the nation in terms of financial support to children's services. One other thing that we have that I don't know any other county that has is we have a sex abuse investigator who is specifically assigned to Job and Family Services. She is employed through the prosecutor's office, but she investigates sex abuse and also physical abuse cases that are reported to the agency. So actually this levy helps fund her position. So if you guys have any additional questions that I can't answer, the director of the agency is Craig Swenson. He would be more than willing to answer any questions that you have. But I am more than willing to also answer any questions that you have. Does anybody have any questions?
Is Family First Council get some of this funding too, or is that a separate funding?
That is separate funding. But what would happen is if this levy doesn't pass, it affects the different programs that we provide and the different providers that help us. So that would be something that would be affected because they're the ones who provide us money for our services for our children. So that would be affected.
guys have a fundraiser coming up, don't you?
We do. We have a fundraiser on the 24th. It's $75 a person. There's a magician coming. It's a home-style food buffet. There's some raffles. There's door prizes. So that will be next week.
Having adopted 4 kids through Geuaga Town, I'm sure intimately aware of the services that they provide, an amazing service, and they're always looking for new adoptive foster families.
Yes,
I'm
we
sure.
are.
But I can't, the support, I mean, we're lucky that we're in a very small county where people were embracing what we were doing, whereas in other counties they weren't. But we used a lot of the resources between Family First, speech, welfare, and they're connected to some just amazing resources. And unfortunately, I'm on the other side of the fence where I've actually had to refer patients and families for issues of neglect abuse. So, and the drug use is just astronomical. So it's affecting families and their connection with so many families.
Yeah, it definitely, and it's different being in Geuaga County, being in such a small county, because we do have a lot to offer. And once people get to know our agency and see the things that we have to offer, it's really important that these services are being able to be funded for our kids. Any other questions? Thank you guys. Thanks again for letting me come here, and thanks for your ongoing support.
I think I can handle this without a cheat sheet. Tonight I'd like to talk to the board just real briefly on the topic of logos as it relates to our district. As in most districts, West Geuaga seems to have an abundance of logos that are utilized on stationery, on uniforms, helmets, you name it. They cover a wide array of symbols that represent the Wolverines in West Geuaga. What I'd like to propose tonight, and this is merely for discussion and consideration, I certainly don't want any board action on this, is that we try to focus a little bit on narrowing those logos down so that we utilize certain logos for certain objects. First and foremost, I guess one that we've all seen many times is the Wolverine claw.
Or many versions of.
Yes.
What's that? We should.
But just press the space bar.
Thank you. Okay. The appropriate Wolverine claw has 5 digits instead of 4. Many of ours have 4, which would be more akin to a wolf or a cat, but we're not a canine nor are we a feline. Actually, a Wolverine is a member of the weasel family, I believe. I don't know what the
Muscle.
am I putting you on? I was gonna put you on the spot. There you go. And we think that the claw that we use should have the 5 digits on it. So that's one suggestion I would have. Not everything that we send out though is designed with athletics in mind, and it seems as though the Wolverine claw is one that we typically look at with athletics. Another athletic symbol that we have is the Wolverine head. Now that, for those of you who know what a real Wolverine looks like, you recognize that as a cartoon variation on the Wolverine head. But it's a good cartoon variation because it's got a snarl on it. It looks sort of mean, and we want that. If we're looking at an athletic countenance, as it were. So there again, that's something that looks nice on T-shirts, looks nice on athletic apparel, certainly. So that's another one that we would like to see representing the Wolverines. And then for something that is of a more scholarly note, we're going to the football field. I know there's a certain irony in that. However, what we're looking at is an uncertain stationary set where it goes out to represent the district in its entirety. Maybe we don't want an athletic field to that. So we're proposing the overlapping WG as something that we would see in our stationery. As you know now, we have 4-toed claws. We have an array of stars that represent the district. And I'm sure the list goes on and on as you go through various groups that have found some form of a picture of a Wolverine. So what I've asked the board for is some feedback, some discussion amongst yourselves as to whether or not you think this is a good idea. We've tried to research the stars. We've never found any board action that in any way deemed those as representation of the district, and while I have nothing against the stars, I think that these logos are easily recognizable and people would see them as West Geuaga. So, do you have any other suggestions for me? Anyone on the board or anyone here with earshot of these tonight that you think would be a good depiction? Please let me know, because this is something that over the next few months I'd like to sort of wrap up and maybe get some new stationery out there and some new business cards and some.
So you're suggesting all three or one of the
No, I'm
three?
suggesting all three on various items. I think if you can limit it to a finite number of symbols, though, that will help us to brand the district, so that if somebody sees one of those symbols, they automatically think, WG is kind of apparent. The five-toed paw, I think, is distinctive because most schools have four. And I really like the head of the green. I've got a T-shirt with it on at school. So, anyway, those are my thoughts on this. I just like to sort of narrow the field of symbols that we're using and try to focus on a way to sort of brand the district.
So I brought this up last year because I believe that this should happen. But whatever the discussion ends up being, I think that although you're emphasizing it's not all about the sports, I think that needs to be communicated to every sports team, because sometimes coaches take it upon themselves to order whatever they want, and we just need to say, this is our brand, this is what we do, because there's so much inconsistency across the whole school.
Well, a lot of districts run into the same problem with colors. Sometimes the third-party person becomes part of the uniform. Sometimes one color is abandoned in favor of another, and over time the whole thing is yeah. Anyway, just a way to sort of confirm our identity and sort of solidify it.
So if we did something like this and we adopted all three of these, between you and Joe, we'd make sure that on the sports side of it, we stay consistent. And even the things that we send out would be consistent with these three logos.
And we'd ask that the school support organizations pretty much abide by this branding too. I know there's a difference. The helmets right now are just they're like the stripes going back. They're mimicking basically the striping pattern on the head of the Wolverine. I don't really have a problem with that, and that's the way that the helmets are developed. I think that looks sort of cool, you know. But I would like everything we do to be consistent with the images that we say. And I was part of a district one time where the symbol was a raven, and you see the fighting mean raven that was on the helmets for football players, was on a lot of the athletic apparel, and you see Heckle and Jekyll, you know, all over the place too. Well, pick a flavor here. Is it Heckle and Jekyll? Is it the cartoon, you know, crow that's depicting a raven, or is it of course the raven was rather sinister looking, but it was a fighting mean raven. So, you know, I think sometimes districts wrestle with a real disparity between their logos. I don't think we do that here. But you do see more variations than perhaps we should see. So that's all I'm asking for you to take a look at it, start considering branding the district more and getting an identifiable mark on the district. Okay, thanks.
Okay, we're gonna head into superintendent's recommendations.
Resolution 5A1 is a recommendation of an FMLA leave for the employee mentioned resolution.
Do I have a motion? Second. I'll second. Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Katsowski?
Yes.
Dr. Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Thorson?
Yes.
Mrs. DeJoy? Yes.
Resolution 2 is a recommendation for a long-term substitute appointment. This is for a person who is on leave.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Katsowski?
Yes.
Dr. Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Thorson?
Yes.
Mrs. DeJoy? Yes. Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
5A3 is a recommendation for a staff appointment of classified educational aid.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Thorson?
Yes.
Mrs. DeJoy? Yes. Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Katsowski?
Yes.
Dr. Phelps?
Yes.
Resolution 4 is for a 2015-16 Saturday event custodian.
Do I have a motion? Second.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Thorson?
Yes.
Mrs. DeFlorio?
Yes.
Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Katsowski?
Yes.
Dr. Cox?
Yes.
Resolution 5A5 is for a 2015-16 classified substitute list. I'm asking for approval of the list.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Thorson?
Yes.
Mrs. DeFlorio? Yes. Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Katsowski?
Yes.
Resolution 5B is for the recommendation of a substitute rate. This is a change in rate for the status of educational aid. Only, yes, that's it.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion?
What is that rate?
It's moving from $11 to $12.50.
Okay.
What that'll do is add, have to be more competitive in the market for that type of educational fee, which involves some quality, responsibility, some questions.
Anything else? Please roll call.
Mr. Thorson?
Yes.
Mrs. DeFlorio?
Yes.
Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Katsowski?
Yes.
Dr. Cox?
Yes.
Resolution 5C is to approve the LEAF contracted service agreement. It's for guidance services, guidance-related services.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Thorson?
Yes.
Mrs. DeFlorio? Yes. Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Katsowski?
Yes.
Resolution 5D is for approval of enrollment capacities for 2016-17.
Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the caps for ninth grade from 195 to 175.
Do I have a second? I'll second the motion. Why? Discussion. So discussion. Why 175 from 195?
The number 195 is a number that I put in there so that we have consistency between 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. If we move the 195 to 175 in 9th grade, it would still have a consistency of sorts. It would be with 7th and 8th grade, and it would not diminish because of the current enrollment levels in those grades, the ability of our current students under open enrollment in 9th grade to gain access. The reason that 175 would not work in some of the other high school grades is because it would be so close to the current numbers that we have that it might mean if we had new students moving into the district, new resident students, some of our current open enrollment students' places could be in jeopardy. Moving the 195 to 175 at the 9th grade level would still allow us to retain our current open enrollment students and would allow wiggle room sufficient so that new students moved in, those students' spots would not be jeopardized. It's a difference in enrollment in grade levels.
Because the 6th, 7th, 8th grade moving up to 7th and 9th grade, the numbers are much lower in the middle school numbers right now, and current 8th graders going to 9th graders only 158. So we have that jump from 195 is too much of the gap.
Well, that's a real problem because we have 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade where we could easily add 15 kids, and that's losing $205,500 worth of revenue. So $205,000 we're just going to sacrifice to have these artificially low levels of student-teacher ratios that we've never had this low. I mean, these are incredibly low, and we're already in deficit spending. So I'm really concerned that if we throw away $200,000, what does that say to the taxpayer who we're asking to approve a levy?
We're talking about 9th grade, we're not talking about 4th, 5th, 6th, we're talking about 9th grade.
Well, I thought we were talking about the resolution. Motion is to modify the resolution.
Well, her
Do we need to
modification
vote
is
on
on the
modifying
one.
the resolution?
Mr. Katsowski, we first have to vote on that amendment
Yeah.
to the motion, And then if you have a second amendment to the.
Okay, great.
You can have a
I'm good with
second
that,
amendment
yeah.
to that.
Okay, so the discussion is she'd like to limit it. It sounds to me
Yeah.
like you'd like to expand it.
I certainly would.
Okay, so
You have to vote on the.
right now the discussion is to take ninth grade from 195 to 175.
Based on the
Yeah, and
current
to
enrollment
discuss
numbers
that.
of 158.
That's $100,000, that's 20 students, that's $100,000.
Currently, our enrollment in that grade level is 158, so we actually bringing it up to 175 doesn't do what you're saying.
Well, versus, it does versus what, it does versus the 195.
Okay, but if you look at the current
Yeah.
numbers for
Yeah.
each grade level, and then move up to the following grade,
Right.
is it actually allows for still 17 open spots additional in the ninth grade.
It does, where the difference between 175 and 195, though, no matter how you slice it, comes up to $100,000. So why would we sacrifice that? You know, going back to 175, trying to have it give us a small amount of additional revenue. That's a good thing. But every time we slice and dice this, we, as a district, lose money. We also lose the capability to offer the kind of courses.
We're not getting rid of anything that we currently have.
Right.
This is actually raising that number. Currently, we have 158 kids in the 8th grade, and how many of those 158, do we have the numbers offhand? How many of those 158 are open enrollment currently?
I know you have that.
13.
There are 13. So we have 13 open enrollment students, and by raising it to 175, now you have put 30 open spots. What you're saying is you want to have 50 open enrollment spots available in the 9th grade when there's only 143 kids in that grade. You want to allow for 50, that would be, what, I'm not a math genius, but that would be what, 40% open enrollment just in that grade? If you leave the number at 195? Are you comfortable with having 40% of a grade open enrollment?
Well, the key is the revenue and the ability to offer advanced placement. We're talking about, we're gonna have classes that make our programs unsustainable. So how do we get the students? I mean, we have to do something to make our AP classes, our honors classes sustainable. We have to do something because of the fact that this school system is in deficit spending right now. So what do we do? I mean, we have limited options. We aren't a federal government, we can't print money. So we have to find a way to earn money, in essence, based off of the resources we've got. And so, yeah, I would support that because I think it's very difficult to ask the community for more money.
So, and you're supporting the reduction to 175?
No, we were talking about the concept of increasing enrollment versus decreasing it.
Okay, so
And
Well,
so
we're
Jackie
just
had
talking about
modest
ninth grade.
decrease
But Ben, I
Yeah.
just want to stay focused. We're talking about ninth grade. We're talking about a number of 175 to 195.
Right.
If you want to introduce another motion and talk about these other things, that's fine. Let's stay focused on this one.
Right, and
So
just
is there-
pertaining to that
Do
grade.
we all have an understanding of what's on the table? I think so. Okay, great. Roll call. So the vote is to change the number that has been recommended by the superintendent from 195 to 175, a reduction of 20. Okay, that's on the table. Roll call.
Mr. Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Katsowski,
No.
Dr. Phelps,
No.
Mr. Thorson,
No.
Mrs. Detroit.
Yes.
Amendment doesn't pass.
Do I have a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent for the current grade level on campus? So moved. I'll second that motion. Discussion.
Yeah, at this point, can I move to amend it, or is that, okay, so I move to amend this by adding to 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade, 15 students, bringing the enrollment to 147 at each grade, and our student-teacher ratio to 25 students per pupil. Or, I'm sorry, 25 students per teacher.
Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion.
I think one of the things that we're losing here, losing sight of perhaps, is the fact that when we set a cap, we're stating that as the cap at which we will cease to accept open enrollment students. it in no way precludes our accepting additional resident students. So when we have caps now that you can see that are about 103 students in a grade, we may have 120 children in a grade, so don't see the cap. It's not simply divisible by the number of teachers that we have, and that gives you the student count in that class. In many cases, with these caps that are currently listed, I know it's easy to take 110 divided by 5 to 22 kids per class. You may very well have 25 or 27 kids in a class, because when we have an influx of students, as we did this year, we had about 50 students since August 1st. Now, the fact that there were caps set, and that we had exceeded those caps already, so we were not accepting additional open enrollment students, we have no choice but to accept new resident students. So while the cap may make it look as though there will only be 22 students in a class, I can guarantee you, in the vast majority of those classes, there will be more than 22 students.
Okay, so from this standpoint, how did you devise this number for this? You worked, I would assume.
Mr. Bernanke and I worked together to look at where we were this year in terms of the number of students we have and what the caps were set at. We set the caps at what we felt was a reasonable number. In other words, no one will argue with the fact that 22 students per class is a manageable number of students. So what we were saying was that if we had less than that, we could bring in enough students to up our enrollment to 110, thereby with 5 teachers, we would have 22 students per class. In reality, we realized that we'll probably have more than 22 students per class. What we're saying is, in the event that we have less than 22 students per class, we could take in open enrollment students to get us to that level. In reality, our resident students are probably going to, in most of those grades, exceed 110 students. So that in the elementary grades, there will be few, if any, open enrollment students in those grades with these numbers.
Yeah.
The students would come in
What do we see the number of resident students being in 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade?
Can you have those numbers with you?
Yep. Currently or for next year?
Well, for next year, the number of kids who move up, resident students.
If no one else moved into our district,
Yeah.
Projected.
moved out,
Right, projected residents for 4th grade would be at 114. And that's with 5 sections, 5 classes. 5th grade, we have 6 sections, would be at 141 projected. In 6th grade, we don't have sections, because they all, it's different than what it is at the elementary, and it's at 148 students projected. Residents.
any more discussion? So the motion on the floor, as I understand it, is
I did want to ask, so do you have the current expected student-teacher ratio at 114, what is that? That's 23, just under?
Right, at 20. The 4th grade you're looking at?
Yeah, 4th grade, 23, and for 5th grade, with our current ratio, we're looking at roughly 23 too, right? Just a little over. Okay, and then 6th grade, I'm assuming we have a capability, because in 7th grade we've got 175, and 8th grade we've got 175. I'm assuming absorbing a few students would be a small thing. And the proposal that I put on the table was 147 in that grade. So what we're looking at is actually we wouldn't be able to accept anyone in open enrollment at that grade, just at current resident student enrollment.
What grade are you looking at?
I'm looking at 6th grade, because you said we have 148 students.
For next year.
Yeah, for next year, and so with no increase in students, the proposal, I had to raise it to 147, leaves us under our actual number of expected students, right?
Correct. So we wouldn't take anybody then?
Yeah, and we'd only, at best, be able to take 6 students in 5th grade, and we'd be able to take a few in 4th grade.
But remember, 4th grade, there's only 5 sections, so you're looking at 29 students per classroom.
Ben, what did you base your additional? Is it strictly revenue, or did you base it on our capacities? Or?
Yeah, I based it on capacity, because I got to look at this fairly recently, and so I didn't go into how many students we actually have, but I wanted to see classes at 25, because that's more where we've traditionally been, and lower classes are going to increase our costs, and so.
Did you know that just last year alone, and I don't know, Lindsay, maybe Brian, you can tell us too, but at Westwood alone, the numbers that we had set, at Westwood alone, we took in more than 25 students just before open enrollment was opened up, residential students. In a 5-week period, we took in 25 new residential students. So
But wait a
we
minute,
have
this
to
West
leave
Geogaga's
some room.
dying and no one's moving in. Where do these people come?
Well,
We have to leave ourselves at least a little bit of room, otherwise we're overcrowding our classrooms. So if you wanted at 25, and we've gone through this before, those here, you know, even before open enrollment was an issue about how setting our grade levels at just the right numbers. If we want to keep our classrooms at 25, we have to give some fluff behind them so that we are going to allow room for our own residential students. We have to take them no matter what. So last year we had 4th and 5th grade classes that were all at 27. That's way beyond what we ever said we would to residents, what we were willing to go to. So what Rich is saying is, you know, if it's going down 1 or 2, that way we give ourselves enough space to take in our own residential students with not, you know, hurting the commitment that we've already told our community we would give them.
So the motion on the floor is to change the caps for 4th, 5th, and 6th?
Yeah.
Okay. Does everybody understand? Roll call.
Change it up to what?
Yeah, I think he said 147, did you say? We're adding 15.
But
Well, wait a minute, we shouldn't do that at 4th grade. At 4th grade should be, that 4th grade should be 125.
4th grade should be 125, 5th grade should be 147?
Yeah, 147 and 147 in 6th grade.
Okay, that's the motion on the floor. Roll call.
I wrote on it. All right. Order will be Mr. Thorson. Mrs. DeTore, no. Mr. Douglas.
No.
Mr. Gutowski.
Yes.
Dr. Fox.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion I had second is the recommendation for the superintendent. Discussion? I mean, I think we've pretty much discussed this, because we've had 2 amendments to it.
Okay,
So,
go back to the original.
well, there was a motion on the floor and a second to this, and then we had an amendment to it. So, the motion that's on the floor right now, that was seconded, that we're discussing, is the superintendent's recommendations. I think we beat this first. So, unless there's any other discussion, roll call.
Dr. Phelps.
No.
Mr. Thorson.
Yes.
Mrs. DeTore.
Yes.
Mr. Douglas.
Yes.
Mr.
No.
Okay, motion carried.
Resolution 5 is recommendation of the resolution to authorize awarding a work for the renovation of the baseball field. You have some background information. The work will be awarded to the Vasco Group. They were the ones who submitted the low bid for the work. You can see the attachment that I'm recommending that the board approve would be the base bid, which comes at $131,125. Alternate bid 1B for field turf, which comes in at $110,500. And then alternate bid C for the outfield drainage, that comes in at $21,800 for a total combined number of $263,425.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second. Discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Phelps.
Yes.
Mr. Thorson.
Yes.
Mrs. DeTore.
Yes.
Mr. Douglas.
Yes.
Mr. Gutowski.
Yes.
Resolution 5C is a resolution for approval of the middle school class trips.
Is that a motion? Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Dorson?
Yes.
Mrs. DeJoy? Yes. Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Pankowski?
Yes.
Dr. Cox?
Yes.
Okay, treasurer's report?
I just wanted to, I sent out a notification to the board that we had been asked to update our Moody's credit rating. And Rich and I were on a conference call last week with Moody's to discuss some of the changes in our financial position over the last couple of years. Things that they cited that were positive for the district were that we were consistently having a positive increase in our carryover. One of the other things they looked at, that we were working very hard as a district to manage or right-size our district with the declining enrollment that we have. We were able to either put in, reduce the number of teachers and employees that we have, or we were managing things with open enrollment, with increasing revenue. So they looked at those things very favorably. They also were very favorable that we had consistent management in place with 3-year contracts with your superintendent and treasurer that we didn't have last year. So those things were all viewed as positive comments for Moody's. Previously we had a AA3 rating, and we moved up a notch to a AA2 rating. What this means is our credit rating is better, therefore our interest rates are lower. We only have $800,000 in bonds right now, $900,000 in bonds right now, that will pay off in 2019. So if we were to ever go out for new money, this is a very positive trend for our district, and we're very pleased with what the board's done to contain costs and to manage where they are now.
Nice job, thank you.
Could I ask you, Mary?
Yes, sir.
So Kenson has a slightly higher rating.
They do.
And why is that? What are they doing that gives them that edge?
They renewed theirs in 2011, so they had a little higher, better financials. It's different, and I think our position is very solid compared to Kinston. They just renewed. The thing that's different with Kinston is that they had a more favorable, you talked to the treasurer, more favorable levy passage history. They were not as up and down as ours have been in the past. Now, in the last, what we've seen recently is that we've passed those emergency levies. They don't have emergency levies on their balance. They have new money. They haven't had new money in a long time. So,
They've done permanent levies, or what have they done?
yeah, the continuing levies is what they had. So it's just been a little bit better in passage.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's anything we could emulate.
Yeah, they identified that as a not a concern, but that was something that they couldn't favor, was the passage rate. Inconsistent passage rate.
Yeah.
But we've passed those last emergency levies. We had a very solid passage rate in the last emergency levy, over 60%, 65%.
Yeah.
So I think if we continue on that path,
I think one of the things that should be noted to sort of put this in context is that many school districts are having their bond rating downgraded these days. So the fact that we received an upgrade was, I think, very encouraging and complimentary to the district. I've been through this a number of times before coming here, and you get a pretty good idea when you finish the conversation whether the representative from Moody's is impressed or not. And I had very good feelings at the end of the conversation until Karen said that we had it. I would have liked it if we could have gone to 2 steps, but I don't know if that ever happens.
that's a big jump. And we submitted a lot of information I sent a lot of information to Moody's to prep them for that telephone conference. So they had a lot of information that I thought was very positive. I gave them access to the website. They had our 5-year forecast, everything that we could send to them.
Let me ask you a question. Where do we stand with other districts like, Chardon?
Chardon doesn't have one. They don't have bonds. So they don't have a rating. Well, they do have a rating. Cardinal was downgraded to BA1. There we go. Kinston has a AA1. Chagrin has a AA1. And Newberry doesn't have bonds. Berkshire, and he's doing the job.
I probably should have opened my question with saying that you guys have done a great job. And
Yeah, that
I'm really impressed because, yeah, I didn't mean to imply that, because Kenston has a higher rating, there's anything wrong with what we're doing. I'm
And they
really
just
proud
went
of
out,
the
and
rating that we
we
got.
have to remember, they are just going out for bonds.
Yeah.
They've got a big bond offering going out right now. So, they're,
Good job.
we're very happy to do so.
Very good recommendations. Okay, treasurer's recommendation.
These are our typical statements and budgets. You'll have one for our class act, for fundraising, high school choir, and high school musical, and the 8th grade video account. These are all normal, recurring fundraising opportunities for
Do I have a motion to approve? Discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Thorson?
Yes.
Mr. Ward? Yes. Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Duff?
Yes.
The second one is the actual for the appropriations in place. You can see them listed there.
I have a motion? Second.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. Thorson?
Yes.
Mr. Jordan? Yes. Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Duff?
Yes.
Dr. Phillips?
Yes.
Item C is the approval of our Judy and Beachy annual audit. They will be here October 9th and December 16th.
Do I have a motion? Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Thorson?
Yes.
Mrs. DeJoy? Yes. Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Kachasik?
Yes.
Dr. Fox?
Yes.
One item, they will be, this is the last year, you're allowed to outsource your audit from the, normally the state auditors do your audit for the districts. This is our last year in this contract. So the state auditors will have to give us a waiver to outsource it again, and they pick who it is. So like we do RFPs and the state auditors will pick our audit firm. Or the state auditors will come in and do the audit themselves. So sometimes they'll rotate it between districts. We only have 10 years with the same auditor, which is in line with some of the things that are changing in enforcement areas as well. So this will be maybe our last year with them, maybe next year.
Okay, standing committee discussions, working with technology time? No. You guys are gonna work on that this next month.
I'm sorry,
This next month, you guys are working on committee.
we got it covered.
Okay. No issues. The financial committee, gosh, we talked quite a bit, actually.
The one thing that we should bring is that we did get our first rate discussion from Medical Mutual for our health insurance. We are looking to, that was a 12.6% increase in health insurance due to some of our claims history that we have in place now. We have gone back to them and asked them to relook at their number, or we just moved to Medical Mutual this year, so we want to, give them an opportunity. We don't want to be bouncing around with our insurance carriers. So we're working with our insurance broker to whittle that number.
Yeah,
It'll be-
just for
the
the-
health insurance committee will meet tomorrow as well to talk about it, as well as our wellness program.
Past claims history that they were aware of, or is that new claims as of this?
The problem when we get into is, when we switched over, they had immature data. We switched over, as you know, the carrier on January 1st. So the only data they have is really the last 8 months, or before they had to come up with a new rate, premium rate. So they only have 8 months worth of data, and, if you have the first 6 months had bad claims, they don't have a good history with us. And Medical Mutual is one of the largest providers in Northeast Ohio. It's one we would like to stay with. We also joined the consortium for the 50 Medical Mutual and not pay the 1% Affordable Care Act percentage. There's a fee associated with that, so that allows us to drop that down, our 4% administrative fee. So we we'd like to stay in that consortium, we'd like to stay with that regional. That's what I have to do. So we need to weigh our options.
What did we, I know we talked about this, but what did we project for a 5-year?
The projection for the 5-year for medical only is 15%, is what is in there, not, because I knew we had heavy claims. So in the 5-year projection, we'll have a 15%, more optimistic than no less than 2.
The claims aside, they're talking about less competition, which means more price. I mean, so those numbers, I mean, when I read in the medical journals, is there's less insurers.
Right,
The
and
price is going to, I mean, we're already seeing that what got sold is going to be much higher rates than we expect. You have to.
with the Affordable Care Act, we're seeing higher rates
Right.
with some of the things that they put in place. We are a grandfather plan, which also impacts what we're doing. So we have to look at that. In the next couple of years, we're going to have to look at whether we have a Cadillac tax associated with our plan as well. So there's a number of health insurance issues that are plaguing us. And we are working, we have an insurance program that's very, very well respected. So I think it's very good advice. But we're going to have to deal with these larger issues. And we have some, you can raise co-insurance and co-pays, you can play around with those, but that affects some things. We have obviously the negotiated item with the union, that you, the teacher union. So if you change the benefits, that affects things. We have to get that approved through the union contract. So anything that we're changing has to go and be negotiated with the union. And that's why we installed the health insurance committee that works together to, meet their needs as meet all their needs of being insured, but also meet the district needs and reducing the cost associated with that. We pay 80%. We are still, paying teachers and our OCs, our classified staff are still paying 20%. The district is responsible for 80%.
Well, the health committee did a remark, which I'm last year, so I count on them to work through this and
We
see
made
what we
some
can do.
big changes for the staff last year, changing to their own usual, and that was
It's greatly appreciated.
it was very good for the district, it was very good.
Yep.
And I think the service that we've received from medical people has been excellent. We haven't, our level of complaints has not been very much, so it's a very, very workable system.
The last thing that you and I hadn't had a chance to talk about, but I wanted to have a discussion about, we've hired some new folks in the finance department, and I know that we had some issues with sort of outsourcing some of those things. Have we not only overcome those, but are things running pretty smoothly now? Because we were running behind, I think.
We were running
paying
behind in
bills.
our payments, when I first got here, and that was for a lot of transition, and we had 4 people in for payable. So we have, Sue is doing very well in keeping up with those, we've been able to handle that volume. Just had to work a few extra hours, and we transition, anytime we transition from 1 year into the next year, it's a lot of work. So Tina has done an admirable job changing over January, and she did an excellent job. And then Amy is our new student activities person, she's learning her job. So I think we are very happy to see a smiling face down there.
Awesome. Mr. Katsowski, anything with operations?
No, we've gotten pretty good information from Dr. Mark Ward, and there's been a need for
Hey, got a letter today about, I think going to the bathrooms in Lindsay or Westwood, but in the question about the money, and we talked about it, and they just don't, what the bathroom looks like here, they don't know what those look like. And there was a question of resources. I didn't know where we were with that, was there money available?
Is that something you guys can look into?
We have to look into that, yeah. Everything there, Jackie says I got the number.
Okay.
I'll look into
I think
it.
we all do.
Okay. It'd be good to look at it.
Well, I think at our retreats, we kind of talked about, doing what we can to, maintain them and spruce them up,
Okay. Personnel, I wanted to thank Mr. Douglas, we did one of our first, as a board member, for me, one of our first reviews of our administrator, which was our treasurer position, and I thought it was done rather professionally. I commend you on not only having a nice program, but having it make a tremendous amount of sense. So thank you very much. I thought it was successful. I felt it was a great exercise, and we'll continue going forward. So thank you. Anything new on the personnel front that we should know? No, that's it. Good shape. Thank you. Mrs. Nattori, back from Australia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've had these policies for quite some time that we've had to make some changes, and then with the change in superintendents, kind of have to re-meet and review them all over again. I think what we're going to do moving forward, because it's a better practice, is most of the time, because you just have received these 3 or 4 days ago, we're going to just approve the first reading, and then hopefully over the next 2 weeks you have more time to go in depth and read them further, and that's when we will, go step by step, and then that way you can ask questions at the same time we're giving you the update on them and explaining them further. That because typically it doesn't seem that you can read this entire packet in a couple of days you received it. So if you could all please review those policies, we'll consider this our first reading, and then please bring your questions to the next. In regards to the 2 policies for this evening, I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Miller.
Sure. One of the policies that was originally current under review was policy 3220, which relates to teacher evaluation. We're in the process right now of working on a memorandum of understanding with the teachers union that will deal with the student growth portion of evaluation. The state has put us in sort of a strange situation this year because they've been changing the rules by which teacher evaluation is calculated through the student growth component. We believe we know where the state is now, so we're going to go ahead and act on that presumption, as are many other districts. I'd like to say we're 100% sure that the state is not issuing anything in writing, they're only telling us verbally what we may do. So there's that, and there's also the matter of the cycle of evaluation. For teachers who receive various ratings, there's a different evaluation cycle. So the memorandum of understanding will delineate that for us. This is an annual process we go through. Once that is in place, then I will ask you to approve the first reading of 3220. In the meantime, tonight, what I am asking is that the board approve the first reading of 2114, 5114, 5340, 5350, 5460, 6108, 6320, 8390, and 8400. Then I am also asking that separately the board approve in one reading only policy 2413.5. I'm declaring this an emergency reading, and I know emergency has sort of an ominous tone to it. It's the way that I can fly this, stating that there is a sense of urgency with it, because typically we don't read a resolution and approve it at the first and last reading. But this is one that has to comply with the September 30th deadline that has been issued by the state. We're one of the few districts in the area that has managed to comply with the state's requirements related to career advising. Our teachers have the necessary endorsement. Am I using the right term, endorsement?
Validation.
Validation, okay. To proceed with this, and we would sort of like to be the pioneers on this if the board permits us to do so. Mrs. Acosta is here tonight. She has been the one who has basically guided us through this process. So I would defer to you to answer any specific questions related to this, if you don't mind. Any questions about?
Could you give us an overview?
Sure. So I'll try to do it in a way that doesn't bore you all to tears. But first of all, the reading pertains to a policy that will lay out career tech programming and career advising programming from really elementary through 12th grade. And so there are several components to it. What you are accepting in your reading is just the programming piece for the entirety of all grade levels. One of the things that we have done in compliance with the state is we have put in place at the middle school with Mr. Kish and some programming that we've been working on together, some career tech offerings for students that will eventually lockstep and create systemic 7 to 12 programming that then is in conjunction with our Excel Tech programming. So we've been in contact with our Excel Tech programming, and so it's a way for us to marry the programs together And really, we are one of the districts that are in the forefront, really kind of forging ahead, if you will. But it's exciting work, and Jim has really worked hard, and our teachers have really worked hard to get the validation that they need. Next, we'll be working on curriculum and a review of curricula, and in terms of EMIS coding and those kind of minutiae that is the important part of my programming. But it's really exciting work, and it's something that will offer our students grand opportunities that they haven't had before, so we're very excited about it. And we will come back with a presentation to the board, I'm sure, as we move that programming forward. So we appreciate the support in the reading, and we will be back with you.
Thank you for neglecting my oversight and not thanking Mr. Fish and also the teachers who've done this, because it took some scrambling and hard everything to do this. There are very few schools in the area, I don't know, any other schools in the area, or any other consortium are prepared to move ahead with this. So rather than seek a waiver from the state, I would like that we have the policy in place for members to do this, because others will be following suit next year.
That's awesome. So that I understand, the first reading is just that. We just made this as a first reading. But we're going to move to waive the necessary and adopt this policy. Is that
It's an
correct?
emergency measure.
Okay.
Second.
So I need a motion to adopt policy 2413.5, declare an emergency and approve on first and last reading. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? I think we just talked about it to a certain degree. Does everybody feel comfortable approving this? Okay. Or at least voting on it and approving it, so we can vote any way that you want to. Roll call, please.
Mr. Katsowski?
Yes.
Dr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Thorson?
Yes.
Mrs. Detour?
Yes.
Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Great. New business.
Could we go back to this, or is the floor open for this? Because I had one thing that I thought we should discuss, see if we can look at it now.
On that policy, that particular
No,
policy?
not that particular policy, the policy in general, because I think we're moving on to first reading, or we're going to go to first reading of the other policies.
Well, I think we've agreed to see it on the first reading and discuss it next meeting,
Yeah.
second.
Right, I'd just like to speed it along by briefly discussing this right now, because it's a small point. What's the parliamentary procedure by which we do that?
I defer to our superintendent or our treasurer.
I'll defer to my attorney.
To our next.
The question was, I'm not sure I understand the question, back to you.
Yeah, there's.
We voted on the second.
We voted on the emergency one, but we had the first reading.
Right.
And wanted to bring up something so that we could save time later, relating to the first reading, relating
Is there a
to.
specific policy?
Yeah, it's a specific policy, student accidents.
Do you normally vote on your first reading?
No, we just never.
Now we
Just notice it. So why don't you just make a motion to revisit the notice of the first readings? If that's seconded and approved by the board, then
Okay.
comments can be made and other discussion will take place.
Yeah.
It's really just a notice.
Okay.
Okay, do I have a motion as a notice of the policy under review reading for first reading?
I move that we do so.
I'll second that. Okay, discussion, Ben, what
Okay.
the policy is.
Here's what I wanted to bring up, and on student accidents. Oh, geez, mine does not show. 534 5034. Okay, good. We have in here that, let me find the exact words now. Yeah. Yeah, regardless of the seriousness of any accident, the administrator in charge will submit an accident report to the superintendent. I think we need definition of where this begins, because we don't want to leave our staff open to any liability, because when it's a blanket of regardless of the seriousness of any accident, that is a huge liability we undertake, because what does that mean? It's very ambiguous. So if we could concoct between now and our next reading, if we could create a definition of what defines the kind of accident that has to be reported, I think we save ourselves a lot of grief down the road.
But it says regardless of how serious it is.
Yeah,
So-
and that means anything. I mean, if you take that to its literal absurd conclusion, and we might just happen to have an attorney here, if somebody, stubs their toe, I mean, regardless of the series of any accident, that's an extremely broad definition, and I would like it narrowed down so that our staff would understand what they're expected to do, and so that we don't hold ourselves liable for anything. Yeah, please do. Thanks. And that's all that really needs to be said.
Thank you. Special version. That paragraph struck me. It's not-
Oh, we're looking to do.
Yeah, this is one of them, I'm sorry.
What paragraph was that?
Third.
That's the third paragraph?
Third paragraph, yeah.
I see it, but I see it on that copy, but I'm sitting on it.
Okay, new business. Just want to read a thank you letter that we got from Christine Guthrie, giving us some hard work in the WestGBrd School, Supt Report of Education, making a difference in the lives of children has brought much satisfaction to me in the past 15 years. Thank you for acknowledging my contribution and dedication as bus driver. Such a nice reminder of your appreciation. Just wanted to pass that on to the board. It was really nice. Any new business?
No, we're working on safety plans right now. It's the principal plan. We'll update on that soon. This is to comply with the new state mandates related to reporting to the Department of Education. We're involved in the process with them discussed it last week, and we'll be giving the board a version of it soon. However, obviously much of what we do is confidential, so I'm sharing in the public session.
Okay, announcement of our next board meeting. It's a regular board meeting at 7 p.m. Monday, September 28th. It'll be right here in the middle school community room. Do I have a motion to go into executive session to consider compensation of a public employee? Item revised code 121-22G15, of which I want to invite the superintendent, the treasurer, and our attorney.
So moved. Oh, motion in a second, and then
Okay, so we need a vote to discuss that policy. Okay, so our roll call vote will be on the first reading. Okay, roll call vote for our first reading.
Mrs. DeFore?
Yes.
Mr. Depp?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes. Now the motion I'm looking for is to consider compensation of the public, executive session to consider compensation of public employees. So I revised code 121-22G15, inviting both our attorney, our treasurer, and our superintendent. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. Roll call.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Thorson?
Yes.
Mr. Ward? Yes. Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
There will be no action on the board after this.